Monica.
Yeah, but Brittany was really involved when I
That
got
was
there.
Veronica, that was not me.
I want to get in on these parties.
Yeah, you should.
How do I get on the list?
Just stop by.
Yeah, well, I gotta.
Yeah, you should have, no, you just, tell Veronica or something.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, if you know somebody, and then pass through another party, which I didn't go, just right before the new year.
Okay.
And one of the agents, Robert Howell, told me, so you guys want to go? I said, no, I'm busy.
Got it.
It was good because, first of all, it's just, you see everyone.
Yeah.
You get to talk to everyone at the party,
Right,
pass out business cards,
yeah.
you want to be seen, by these
Right.
people and some of the top, like top agents.
Yeah,
You talk to the top agents, Jeffrey Arbro, Robert Howell.
I didn't.
You guys
I know,
I'll introduce you.
that'd be great. I mean, I really appreciate that. And I still.
Robert is normally, I can, after the class, I can meet you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much, man. I
Is
still.
it- Robert Howell has a lot going on, has a
Huh?
lot of
Cool.
agents, he knows a lot of people.
Well, I'm gonna make him
in this
host.
business, more of
He
you
has to
guys,
talk.
and he talks to you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
That's what I'm like.
And I have-
Brittany, can you send me the link? All right.
Is it CWB?
That's a good URL.
Right?
I made that. Nice job.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't, but that's right.
You did take credit for it, so that's.
He took credit for it. So I'll give him that.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
And then you'll want to mute yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
okay,
And I'm gonna
Cool.
make you a host.
great. Are we recording and we're live? There's some people online. Hello, everybody. And what's your name?
Andy.
Good to meet you. Steph? Steph, yeah. Nice thing I'll leave it on here. Thank you. You took care of it already. What's your name?
We're good?
Armand. I'm Steph.
This is Armand the Great.
Cool. Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Andy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not jealous. Don't worry.
Are you singing in class?
Yes, May.
Okay.
May, are you,
May.
you're saying, you're good? You're in class? You're saying in class? Or no?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Okay, all right. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you again.
All right, Steph, you're good to
All right,
go.
cool. We're at 11. Can everyone hear me okay? How have I seen online? Can you hear me okay?
Probably, but she's on the phone.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll jump in now.
Trust me, they'll yell at me if they can't.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, hey, happy New Year. everyone. Thanks. So today, kind of like last time, just like super casual, like conversation. Essentially, the idea is, so I was a real estate agent for a little bit.
Oh, that's great.
And I switched to architecture. But when I was an agent, like I loved certain buildings. I didn't know, I didn't know about them. And then I studied architecture. I worked at firms. I started design practice, et cetera. And I learned like the barrier for entry is kind of difficult. It's like, it sounded so cool to me. Like, oh, like I want to study architecture. I want to know about architecture, but it's like, it's hard. It's like, where do you start? So essentially what I prepared today, which we can just buy, that's like about what's helpful for you. But I just put together like a list of like architects and works in LA going historically that we can talk about like the construction process, et cetera, or not the construction process, but the construction involved in these buildings, the design. In a way, the point is, thinking in terms of how this can bring value to you, to your clients. Like if you have exposure to this and you're aware of these certain designers and what's really like the highest caliber building, right? Which is the product that you sell, where does that position you? Like that could position you in that high tier. And also in terms of knowledgeability with your clients, like, oh, there's this architect who's done this, like, how does that impact the design of the current day product? And what does that mean? So that was my insight with this. That said, it's curated to you. I don't know what it's like to be an agent in today's day and age. So, if there's something, questions, interrupt, whatever the case is, I'm here for you. Before we start, well, so my background, I do design and development. So we're doing 6 6 residences in Silver Lake right now. Yeah, so things are happening, so that's good. So, I mean, my firm's uniquely positioned in that we're like in the trenches, you know, we're not just designing stuff and from the sidelines telling people what they can do, what they should do. Like, we have skin in the game. We put money on the table. We say we're going to build stuff too, as well as design it.
Well, that's great.
Thanks. So it's kind of iconoclastic in terms of like the typical role of someone in my position. Born and raised in LA, I worked at like award-winning firms, started my own practice, and that's kind of my background here. I can get more in depth, but we could do that more later as we get to know each other. I had some questions just for y'all to think about throughout the class. If there's any tools I can provide to you, given my expertise, that's going to help you close deals, whatever it is from the construction and design side that I can give you, that you can give a client, or just for you to have, it's going to help you close that deal that you need to close. With the ADUs, you know, we do these diagnosis phases where it's like, what can you do? And we figure that out before people get big costs. Same with remodels and new builds. But if anything comes up, let me know. We do that a lot with brokers when they're trying to sell something. We come in and we start the pre-design phase.
So I don't know if it's a fit in your category.
Yeah.
But like for me, especially the zoning is important. Like what kind of zoning,
Right.
how many buildings we can like build.
Yeah.
If you can provide us those information, like what if like some people wants, for example, let's say it's four units in the like
Yeah, right.
the plan, and they are thinking to like do it to 6. How we can
Totally.
change it, the zoning.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
what does it mean? Like, you know how it's analysis says like this or something.
Yeah, R2 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can provide some information
Yeah.
about those, we would appreciate.
Yeah, you know, so thank you. That's great. So yeah, I can put together like a zoning summary. Typically for that, what we do is we offer that's what we call the diagnosis. So we do a 3-step process. We do the diagnosis, which is like a meeting. We come to the site. We do a basic zoning analysis. Every site is site specific. That's like between, I mean, at the low side, 1,000. It doesn't get less than 1,000 to do that. It's work. Then once we figure that out, we move on to design phases if people want to work with us, which they do. So, you know, then we do a concept phase, which is like a lighter touch. And that's where we figure out what that really looks like. And then we do a phase. The 3rd phase is really doing the design documents. The typical way people do that is they just put a proposal out for the whole project. We don't do that. We say like, hey, let's figure out what you're doing. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice in the medical field. So we relate it similarly, like a surgeon. Like, let's figure out what we're going to do here before we cut you open and start, you know, removing stuff and putting stuff in. But I can put together a zoning summary that's like, here's how to look at things. The city has one, but it's tough to find, but I can refine it and make it a little clearer. So, sorry, remind me your name once again.
Malika.
Malika. Okay, great. Nice to see you again. Yeah, so if anything else pops up in the process, let me know. What's up?
Steph, are you also strong on the commercial side?
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. And I have a team, my team that I work with, we have over 100 years experience combined.
I know somebody who built a commercial, went with the wrong design and everything.
Okay.
Got stuck big time.
Yeah, well, let's talk after, because
Yeah.
it can be really, commercial can be really tough.
It is. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're just doing that residential stuff. You
It's-
hired a
yeah.
residential guy to do commercial and then he got stuck because
Yeah,
they come back and
right.
the inspectors notice that the guy doesn't know what you're doing, they delay your work.
Yeah, it can be tough, and especially
Very
if people start building first. We had a project.
And the guy started with the 4-story. So
Yeah,
he was too high and then he had
Right.
limitations, parking situations,
totally. Yeah.
elevators, all of that.
It can be really tough.
Yeah.
So then the other thing that I'll just touch on before, so we're talking about doing a series of talks. So we initially met for the Truth About ADUs talk.
Right.
But so what I was thinking of doing, this is kind of the first of the series, is here's like an overview of architecture in LA, how it relates to what you do in terms of residential projects.
Right.
And then we were also going to talk about the architecture design process, the permitting process, the construction process, the value of architectural sales compared to other non-architectural, which after today will make sense. And yeah, what was the 6th talk? I'm forgetting right now. Oh, I think ADUs pretty much.
Yeah.
But you know, we also do, like, we have 8,000 square foot house in the bird streets right now that we're doing. We do all sorts of stuff. We just,
Remodeling and everything.
yeah, we do it all. So, all right.
Ground up to ground up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's-
Oh, yeah. We developed a reputation for the ADUs. Which I don't know if you saw the LA Times article yesterday, but it was talking about the challenges of doing
Oh,
ADUs
yeah,
and how
huge.
we still have 15 clearances and departments to go
Huge.
through. Yeah, it was a decent article. But okay, so we'll jump into it now. We'll have some more fun. Let me open this up. And everyone on Zoom, I am hosting too, so it's a little tough for me to respond to all the comments, but just checking, hopefully someone here. I'm sorry. I'm able to share this. Oh, I don't know this. Yeah, for 8 seconds. I'm gonna host. I'm just unable to share. The two newcomers, what are your names? Blake. Blake,
Jen,
Blake and Jen, cool. Hey, I'm Steph.
hi.
So there's some early preamble, but if there's any like questions you have, it's just a free form conversation. Cool. The idea is like talking about architecture in LA. Historically, I used to be a real estate agent. It's stuff I wish I knew before I switched professions. Just like who's who. We're just gonna look at photos of buildings and chat about it. Love that.
Nice.
Cool. All right, thank you, Brittany.
I'm talking about the zoning, right?
Not today. Today, we're not talking about the zoning.
Oh my God.
You can call him later and talk.
Yeah. Oh, this is so
Private.
good. Yeah, sure.
I mean,
I think, yeah.
نه آخه اونجوری مثلا هر کی هر سوال داره میپرسه بعد چیز میشه.
Yeah, no, those, you have, yeah, he's talking different. I have some other questions from some other things. I'm gonna talk to him privately.
Oh, no, we'll do that. Nice. Okay, it's working, right?
You see on Zoom? Yeah,
Oh,
it says,
sorry.
says you are viewing Steph's screen, so.
Okay. There we go, okay. So. We did the intro. So what, I mean, this is just a blueprint. We're gonna be super loose here. Any questions you have? I'm sorry, we're not gonna talk about zoning too much today, but we can talk
Next
more.
time.
Yeah. And the whole idea is like how you can like help your clients here, right? Like if you know about architecture in the highest caliber, like what are the highest value architectural projects in Los Angeles? You sell buildings. These are the most beautiful buildings in LA. Point is for you to be educated on that, so you bring that to the table and you meet with your clients. So, you know, I mean, basic stuff. A lot of buildings are ugly and they don't meet the needs of the current clients. If you look at like old Craftsman, are beautiful, but if you look at the Sears Roebuck calendar, it's like a 3-bedroom with 1 bath on the top
Yeah.
floor. It's like totally doesn't work today, right?
No,
But those are beautiful. But then you have a lot of the ugly stuff, which we won't look at today. That just doesn't meet the needs too. And then they're selling for, you know, millions of dollars because it's
yeah,
there's a difficult area of entry to be knowledgeable of. It's just tough to come across all these names and study all this stuff. And then the idea of, you know, positioning your brand at the highest caliber of building. So this is a trend we see a lot, right? Like we see these farmhouses and we see this like these black Scandinavian style design things, right? Interrupt me at any point if you have questions, by the way. This actually isn't the best idea of the farmhouse, but typically,
yeah.
so here's an elevated trend. So this farmhouse, you've seen this before where you have the house, right? And then this is not the best drawing, just to be quick, but you know, you got your windows and then you have this stuff that's coming in and it's like these straight lines, right? You know what I'm talking about on the farmhouses?
Yeah,
So that's called board and batten. So, and that has a historic element to it and is actually a really great tectonic system. Tectonic just means building assembly. When you see that, that's typically James Hardy board and batten is the brand. That is typically the cheapest thing that you could possibly build with. So the contractors that I've worked with who do things where I'm like, I have no understanding how you're getting this price, like, you know, things have gone wrong on site. You know, a lot of them try to use that stuff, so we see a lot of that. So just in terms of positioning this, on the top right is a cute little Jacobson farmhouse style home on the East Coast. You can see how like across here, the windows all line up. There's this thoughtful composition. There's just something about it that's more elevated. This is messy, like things aren't lining up, it's all over the place. Like there's a difference in thoughtfulness, and that's what I would argue makes good architecture. This is Diane Keene's old home on Roxbury. Same thing, like this is, I think, what people want with the farmhouse. This is the dream of it. This is kind of more of a ranch house or a mission style, but a similar idea. It's like the windows line up. There's this proportional aesthetic. If you look just at this, like that's a beautiful ratio and proportion. Again, it's thoughtfulness, right? So that's over on Roxbury. It's a beautiful home, and it was built, you know, a long time ago. So the next one, the elevated trend, that Scandinavian house in Southern California. I just wanted to address this before we get into all the architecture. We see these black houses in LA. What do you think is the issue with black houses in Los Angeles?
Hot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's just like, you know, typically someone who had control of that didn't know what they were doing in terms of climate control. So when we see that, you know, that's why everywhere else with the same climate, we have white houses. This is in Malibu. It's a Richard Meyer project. We'll look at it again later. But that's why that's a white house. You know, it gets a lot of sun. It has some lazy on the other side. It might still get hot. That's Eli Broad's house, so I haven't been inside it yet. But yeah, so just wanted to touch on those things because it's kind of the difference between what we'll be looking at versus what we're seeing a lot of on the market, or at least I've seen on the market. And please interrupt at any time with questions, insights. You're the experts on the sales here. So going back to 1908, Gray and Greenhouse, the Gamble House. Just gotta keep it on time. Let me know if I'm rambling too much. Do y'all recognize this house from anything? Back to the Future. This was the garage. The garage was actually, the garage of this house was the grandpa's garage. But so this is craftsman style, built in 1908. Green and Green were like the kings of craftsman homes. Yeah, sorry, craftsman homes. So they also did fun things in their house where they had details that were like intentionally mistaken to take the edge off. So, which is also like a Japanese wabi-sabi sort of thing, where in terms of design aesthetic, where you make one mistake, it's like, okay, we got it out of the way, because nothing can be perfect. But again, the elevations, the proportions, just beautiful. This was for the Procter and Gamble family. And so they had all these outdoor verandas where they would actually sleep outdoors because of tuberculosis at the time. And it was like close enough to get to the beach, but also 1908 population in LA was so small. It was such a different time that also in terms of the construction of this, the materials used, the long pieces of timber, we had access to trees that we don't have access now, meaning really big pieces of wood. So this allowed a certain kind of construction. This is over on Camden, I think, just north of Sunset. This is also Gray and Green homes, smaller. Idea of the interior, and they're a little smaller, a little darker, the homes, but they have this really beautiful wood, really similar aesthetic. You
meant the inside is like that, it's green.
Yeah, the green for this is the Beverly Hills home. I'm forgetting the name right now. There's also one in Berkeley that's really beautiful that I actually got a chance to stay in, called the Thornton Residence. It's a frat house. Yeah.
It means all the green houses, inside is, the ceiling is like that.
Not exactly like that, but similar. So that's essentially, based on what this looks like to me, is it looks like we call it a glue lam, which means glue laminated timber. But this is just heavy timber construction, essentially. So the heavy timber going across, those are actually structurally integral. From a design standpoint, designers, like high designers, typically stop at things that are faux structural for aesthetics. It can also be kind of a game that we play, but most of these are really like all of these details here, like these are actually ceiling joists and the rafters and the structural elements. That's not just for design. Yeah, but they're similar in this aesthetic, as are a lot of the craftsman homes. You have a lot of the structural members being exposed on the outside of the drywall and whatnot. So moving on, 1919, Irving Gill, Horatio Court. Have y'all seen this one in Santa Monica? Yeah, I love this home. And it's like 1919, like what is going on in the world, right? Like So, and it's also so crucial to think about perspective of like how many homes were built in LA. LA doesn't have traffic, like there's orange groves. I don't know if the valley was developed yet in 1919, it's like, there was a lot less going on. But similarly, the proportions of this, like, I mean, you can just tell it's almost innate, like this is a 2-to-1 proportion, this is probably like 1.25. It's all there and it just touches something like in us innately. I think that way. What do you think? Do you kind of get that too? Is my sensibility off with that being communal or?
Yeah, I think natural aesthetic, like,
Just looks nice.
It clicks, yeah.
yeah.
There's
You don't know
something
what
about
it
it.
is, but it just works.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely amazing.
Cool, yeah, there's actually, love it, thank you. So there's actually, these condos is for rent and is for sale right now, actually. This is like just off of Pacific and, not Ashland, one of those streets down there in Santa Monica, just off like Bay Street, the surf spot. So it's really close to Main Street. There's a dog in the window named Gil, it's actually my friend's dog. So when you walk by, you often see this golden retriever in the window. I think Gil has an Instagram too. Yeah, so Irving Gill, he built a lot in San Diego. The idea with this kind of courtyard typology, it actually went into disarray at one point. It was rebuilt, but it was creating community as well as a building. That was a lot of the idea here. And I've been in the units before. I've hung out in them. I've been to a party in one of them. It's really cool. Like they have all these little outdoor spaces that you could share. They're a little smaller. The floor plan isn't to code today, but it was a different time. 1921, Frank Lloyd Wright. Have any of y'all been to Hollyhock? So this is in Los Feliz. Also, just a caveat, I'm showing mostly residential houses in Los Angeles. There's a lot more history just to make it more digestible and accessible. LA residential. So Hollyhock it's also called Barnsdall Art Park. You can go visit this home. It's recently remodeled. They'll have like art installations there.
Is it open for visiting now?
Sorry, what was that? Fida?
Is it open to visiting now? Because I drove through and it was closed last year.
Maybe because of COVID, it should be. I didn't even make an appointment, but yeah, I mean, I think you should be able to go on now and check. I feel like it is open. Actually, if you could let us know, that'd be great.
What is that at?
It's
Absolutely. This is one of my favorites. I saw on YouTube a movie about this building, this amazing architecture. This is one of my favorites.
yeah, so same. I appreciate that. So a lot of the inspiration for this, Frank Lloyd Wright had a lot of like Mayan inspiration. I don't know what that exactly meant to him. People study Frank Lloyd Wright for their whole life, but I do know that the patron's favorite flower was the hollyhock flower. So a lot of these ornamental details here, those are all Frank Lloyd Wright's take on a hollyhock flower. And he did that a lot. You have these geometric approaches to things. And again, the proportions, like you can just tell this is 1-to-1 with this massing on top. There's a separation with this ornamentation. And there's a lot of outdoor space here. This is the living room. The fireplace is this massive, like, almost sculpture, which Frank liked to do. He loved these big fireplaces. So interestingly, it's argued that, and maybe there's more up-to-date research, I'm not a historian, but Rudolf Schindler worked in Frank's office. We're going to see Schindler's work in a second. Apparently Schindler was the architect of this, or at least I've heard that, but Frank said all he did was sweep the floors in the office. What Schindler went on to do, though, is one of my favorite houses. Oh, here's some other Frank work. So this was in Westworld, actually. It's the Millard House, or La Miniatura, again, inspired by this Mayan sort of thing, apparently. Again, same compositions, proportions, really nice. It's much easier to do that when you have a big site and a patron with a big budget. You can kind of play with that a little more, as opposed to, I have to fit 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms into this 3,000 square foot lot. Like if someone bought one of those, but just really beautiful. It's about environment and experience. The Snowden house, it's rumored the Black Dahlia murder actually took place here. This is it from the outside. This is on Suns Franklin, east of Western, I believe, on the north side of the street. They have a lot of like fashion events here as well. This is the Schindler House. I love this home. This is on Kings Road. You can also book a tour here. Highly recommend it. Just a super beautiful home. I mean, 1922, again, Orange Grove, Los Angeles. I think there wasn't like anything around this house at the time. Kings Road. Yes, just the composition is beautiful. You look at this and you see how he breaks this up, which he's done on a lot of projects. It's kind of his language. The garden was really important. These are some of the photos of the interior spaces. It was tilt up concrete construction. So the walls were literally tilted up and put into place. There's a private balcony for each of the rooms. So 1922, this is kind of one of the first co-housing projects, as well as I'm aware. So what they did was, zoom in, it's a little tough to read, but essentially this rectangle, this one, and this one are all independent rooms for the 4 people who lived there. Was Rudolf Schindler and his wife, and then another couple. So I think these were the Schindler quarters here, and these were for the other couple. So they just each had their own room, and then all this outdoor space. They shared this kitchen, and this was the garage. And I'm not quite sure what this is. There's a garden back here, and tons more outdoor space. It was one of the first, like, everyone had a studio that kind of flowed into each other. Schindler was also a contemporary of Richard Neutra, who built a lot, especially in Silver Lake. Here's another Schindler apartment building. I just love it. Again, the composition, you see the horizontal lines going through there. You can tell it's composed, it's thoughtful, it shapes this view. There's a lot of that proportional thought going on. Again, as well as the tectonic expression. What I mean by tectonic is the construction, the way that the separations in the windows show a form of order and thoughtfulness.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt. Where is the apartment building located?
This is in Silver Lake in the hills. I'm forgetting the street. If you type in Manola Court, you'll be able to see it though.
Okay.
It's north of Sunset, kind of in that, what's that main boulevard in Silver Lake that goes north?
It's easy to find this information on internet. Just
Yeah, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Children's buildings and its whole list with the addresses.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll make a note of that to include it for the next go round. So Nina and Arthur Zwiebel, I love them. They're not super well known in terms of, like, people don't say their name a lot, even in the architecture community. But I just love their work. We've passed by their homes all the time. So this is on Fountain on the north side, east of La Cienega and west of Fairfax. So it's got this sort of Moroccan inspired thing. It's very old Hollywood, it's the exposed heavy timber again. Really classic, nice archways, nice proportions, nice composition. Just like the way this window lines up with the center of this here, there's definitely some sort of Hollywood, play going on. This is another one of their homes. A while ago, it's one of my favorite units I've seen. Jason Schwartzman actually sold his unit that was in this building. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. This is up in the Bird Streets, kind of behind like Pink Dot, sort of north of Sunset Plaza area. So that's 1926. Here's Richard Neutra, I mentioned before. I'm pretty sure he worked for Frank Lloyd Wright as well. But this is his VDL research house. VDL was the name of the patron who funded the home. Neutra did a ton of work. Frank Gehry actually interviewed to work with Neutra. And in Frank's biography, I believe he said that Neutra said that he'd have to pay the intern for him, so Frank didn't take it up. But Neutra did a lot of stuff around LA. Even in Westwood, he has a number of apartment buildings. And if you look at the old photos of it, and like the Neutra Cashin book, you see there's like nothing around it. It's crazy. It's like Westwood where all the college ones are. So this is also easy to go access and visit. Here's a photo of Neutra and Schindler. Which one do you think is Schindler?
The one on the left.
The one on the right.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
A little bit.
See, I just feel like two couples living together. There's something about Schindler's Boys where he's like, yeah, like, it's kind of got a vibe to it. I love Schindler. Okay, Julia Morgan, Hearst Castle. We're taking a little detour just to show another example of what's going on. William Randolph Hearst, right? Citizen Kane was kind of based on him. Julia Morgan, one of the first female architects. She did 700 buildings, I think. I mean, incredibly prolific, all over the place. She like the Berkeley Women's Club. She did some big stuff in LA, ton of work. But this is the Hearst Castle Pool, which is just, I mean, it's legendary. If you haven't been up there, it's phenomenal. It's so beautiful. And San Simeon is also an amazing place. I actually got engaged there. Yeah, worth a tour for sure. It's a little lag. That's 34 going into, World War II years. LA's getting more popular. This is the Eames House. You all know the Eames chair, I take it, right? Super famous. Henry Miller sells them for $7,000, I think. So the Eames built this. Their studio was actually on Abbot Kinney, the first block first block east of Main Street. Sorry, I can't remember the names. I'm born and raised in LA, so I just know like the general locations. But they built this based on a lot of the materials they actually had in their studio that they were already fabricating things out of. You can also visit this. It's a case study house. So there was a case study program in LA where LA said, like, okay, we're going to build a bunch of stuff and make it super cool and architectural and get these architects to do it. And there's another great Taschen book. They even have a smaller version now that's like, instead of the big one, on the case study program. But the Eames House is one of those homes. Double loft space. They actually have their studio on one portion of the lot and then their house on the other. And it's a huge lot in the Palisades overlooking the ocean. It's fantastic and it's really worth visiting. There's a lot of cool colors on this right side here too, and fun stuff that they did. Is this a good pace? Are we doing okay? What's that?
I'm loving it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great. And please interrupt questions, anything, but this is the stuff I wish that I knew when I was like a real estate agent. These are the buildings that make LA. So what's up, Daria?
What's going on, man?
Hey, man. So Stall House, another case study home. You've seen photos of this everywhere. That's an Eames chair in it.
I had no idea those were $7,000. I see those all the time.
They might be 5,000.
That's crazy.
Between 5 to 7. Those chairs, they're so comfortable. The real ones, I instantly fall asleep in them all the time. We're just talking about architecture today. Architecture in LA.
What is it called?
Fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Really? What are the chairs called?
Eames chairs.
Eames.
E-A-M-E-S. Just like that.
Thank
Eames chairs. Yeah, and if you're ever casually in Basel, Switzerland, the Henry Miller campus is super worth visiting. It's like architectural wonderland. You get to see their collection of chairs, a lot of Eames stuff. It's phenomenal. So that's a Stall House. You can visit this as well. Check it out in person. It's tough to pull this kind of construction off today with current codes. You can do certain things, but post and beam, again, real structural integrity. This is actually the structure of the home. This would be interesting to get through Title 24 energy codes now with all that glazing. I'm pretty sure it's facing north. No, it's facing south. I haven't been there yet, embarrassingly, but I'm excited to go see it. John Laundrie, Sheets Goldstein House. Y'all recognize this one? Oh, we've seen this. A lot of photo shoots here at 1963. So we
Big
kind of.
Lebowski house.
What's that?
Big Lebowski house.
Yes, indeed. The Big Lebowski house.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So this was actually expanded upon. So it was originally built for a teacher, and then he also designed an apartment building for them in Westwood. Super cool. I mean, many in Mount Berger outside of it, just to kind of stare at it. It has like a rotunda. So it's an apartment building that has round rooms. It's pretty wild. It's called the Sheets apartment building in Westwood. Definitely worth a drive. If you're over there in and out or whatever over there. But yeah, so this was the house for them, this is in like, the hills of Beverly Hills. It was expanded upon. This is the living room. You can get inside it. You have to have it in somehow or put a group together. One of the things, actually, look at this. I'm going to have my email up at the end. If you're interested in going on an architecture tour, please email me. I'm going to start doing those. I can see about this. There's a beautiful infinity tennis court here too, which I haven't played on, and it's awesome. Then that was part of the expansion. And this structure though, and it was different before Jim Goldstein purchased it. He's now donated it to LACMA, so it's gonna be open to the public. Within the concrete, you can kind of see these dots here, these dots of lights. They had the kids go up there and put marbles in the concrete mix, so you get this like filter of light coming through there. Super cool. There he is, Dave Lebowski. Ray Cappy. I feel like I'm the only one that does this, but I kind of call Cappy the Sinatra of architecture in LA. He's I went to the school that he founded. My business model is based on his. We do development too, just like Ray did. Super smart guy in terms of construction as well. Huge influence in Los Angeles architecture. A lot of the architects we'll see later all studied with Ray, went to Ray's school, knew Ray. This is his house in Rusted Canyon, pretty close to the Eames house. Not open to the public, but you can drive by it. There's actually a bunch of Cappy homes there. And the plan is just like, I mean, it's so genius the way that he did it. And you can kind of see on the right here, these, we call them sectional qualities. So section is when, okay, say this is your house, right? So a floor plan is when you cut through this way, looking down. And then a section is when you cut through this way, looking into the house. So it's like the vertical floor plan. So sectionally, you see all this connection between these floors. So what that looks like in a section is this. So if you have someone standing here, right, they can see up there, this person can see there, this person can see in both directions. So you have this connection throughout the space. This plan, when you study it, he's got a studio down here, he's got a living room over here, he's got a bedroom portion over here, which is actually 2 bedrooms and a study. And then he's got kitchen and then a primary suite over here, big pool in the back. It's a phenomenal plan to look at. Plan's gonna be tough to read and study, but yeah, that's the Cappy house. He has these big windows where you can see into the nature landscape. All these projects, all the like the LA thing is about integrating nature and building. That we have the climate here. We're not in Norway where it's snowing all the time. Cappy really embraced that with these windows and all the elevations all the time. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Frank Gehry, early work. So Frank Gehry, does everyone know Frank Gehry? Okay, Frank Gehry did the Walt Disney Concert Hall. This is later, he used aircraft design technology to pull that off. His biography is phenomenal. That's after he did Bill Bow, but he had started in the Walt Disney Concert Hall at that point. So we all know that building. But that's Frank Gehry. Love Frank. I shook his hand when I graduated from SciArc. I got into this profession because of Frank. I'm going to put my email in the chat and my phone number if you want to text me or have some projects you want to talk about. So the Danziger studio, this is one of the first real Frank projects. I mean, I could do a whole class on Frank. He did a lot of work early on that no one really noticed. He did the original Santa Monica place as well. It was really influenced by the people in his studio, which there was a lot of turnover throughout the years. Now he's got like hundreds of people in the shop. The Danziger studio, Danziger was a furniture maker. And again, back to like the proportions and thoughtfulness. This is on Melrose, east of La Brea.
Wow.
On the north side of Melrose. I think Eric Butterbaum, is that his name? Yeah, the perfume floral guy, right? Yeah. So he bought it. I think his studio was there, and I don't know what's there now.
It's way west of La Brea. It's closer to Los Angeles.
Is it? I think it's. Oh, okay, got you. Always with the knowledgeable tidbits. So yeah, so this studio was like double loft space. Frank did this in a lot of buildings. Frank is similar to Ray, super influential on LA architecture. This is his early language. This is that stucco that you see on a lot of buildings where it has like the beads on it. You know what I'm talking about? So that was used to kind of like, or at least this is at least what I read. I haven't looked into it too much, but it's a kind of concrete that's like shot out of a hose. So Frank said about this, it was used on tunnels. He was the first one to say, let's put it on a building. And that's kind of the innovation of Frank, taking these materials that were used in other areas and applying it to buildings. So really rough construction, really inexpensive construction comparatively. This is his house. This is on like Washington and 22nd. This shook up the world when it was built. Like people, when they first saw it, they couldn't believe it. When I was a kid, I went to Franklin Elementary School, which is right by here. We walked by this and I didn't know there was a house in the back. I just saw the steel with the 2x4s and the glass and thought like, this is the coolest thing ever. When I was a musician, I wanted to use it to sound like what this house looked like. But you see this, the fencing, like he has fencing on the house. This was an uproar like in Santa Monica, you know, over there. This is the interior of this cube, corrugated steel siding, you know, this industrial aesthetic applied in a super, super creative way for a residential home in Santa Monica.
May I ask, what do you think the fencing, like the intention was? Is it just purely design or is it like a shade or something?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a shade element to it, and a lot of the fencing is right in front of a balcony.
Okay.
So the OG Santa Monica place also had the parking structure, had this fencing that was then painted, and it had a super graphic, like almost Barbara Kruger style, that said Santa Monica Place on it. So Frank was just really into taking these like cheap materials and replacing them. So this was a revolution in his own over because he went through like a divorce and started going to group therapy at the time. And at that group therapy, there were a lot of artists, big artists. Chuck Arnoldi, I think, was there. And he had a partnership with Chuck Arnoldi to develop. They ended up building the Arnoldi Triplex, which is 2 blocks south of Justa. It's also Dennis Hopper owned them, and his house is next door, which Frank also worked on. Corrugated steel siding, if you go there, I think it's on Indiana Avenue. We can also do a walking tour at some point. It was all about that juxtaposition, really influenced by the sculptors and artists at the time. So this is a Stiller residence. This is 2 blocks north of Market. That's the exterior, again, corrugated steel siding, but still you can see there's this proportional stuff going on. There's just something going on where it's thoughtful in that way. We start getting more complicated in terms of the geometry. He starts angling things in a different way. So you can see, you know, the 2x4s, which create this really nice sensation of light moving through the space. You know that feeling when it's just that perfect time where the light breaks through something in the window and you get that shadow and you see the dust in the air a little. I mean, that's that magic moment that architecture can do, right? Like that's what I think gets touched on here. It really highlights that. It's not that it's crazy amount more cost to do that. It's just a thoughtfulness. So that's a Stiller residence. Studio Works, Gagosian, Venice. Larry Gagosian, y'all familiar with him? He's quite the character. There's a great book called Boom about Gagosian in the art world. So Jean-Michel Basquiat, he lived here when he was in LA. This was his place that Gagosian put him up in. This is across the street from a new phenomenal restaurant called Market in Venice, 72 Market. I actually worked on this little bit of the house. That was one of my first projects next door, working on a portion of the remodel of that. This is the interior of this works. Robert Mangurian and, wow, Craig Hodgetts were Studio Works, 1980. Mangurian won the Rome Prize, so he went to Rome to study architecture. It was a grant that he received. Similar proportions, you see the symmetry. It's almost like if it was different materials, it'd be like a villa, you know, if it was limestone, if it had those sort of French corners, you could sort of see it in terms of just the graphic composition, but instead it's this like LA pseudo-industrial Venice 1980 thing. And then this staircase, like, what is this? It's so cool. I mean, it's just like, I mess it all up. You know, like a step for every foot. I mean, I think it's so creative and unique. So jumping now, we're gonna jump around a little bit. Tom Main, he's principal of Morphosis Architects. He was one of the founders of SciArc with Ray Cappy. This is Tom's new house. And I mean, Tom did Cooper Union, in New York, the school, and with a big team. Pavel Gedov was on that team. He did Caltrans, which is in downtown LA, was featured in the movie The Island. If you saw the movie Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro's first on-screen face-off, their face-off happened on Cape Manalini, which is on Doheny and Wilshire. It's like closed restaurant, used to be a super cool burger joint. The house that Pacino lives in, that was actually Tom's old house called the 6th Street Residence. So this is his new house. This bridge, flybys, it's super cool. It used to be Ray Bradbury's home in Cheviot Hills. Then he bought it, and what he did with it, it's like, I mean, it's a 2-story home, but he got this lot that's on a low corner in Cheviot Hills. And it's the simplest thing. It's so simple. And that's the brilliance of it. So if you build a 2-story home, right, you got 30 feet here, right? But what he did is he dug this out. And then, story 1 is like in here, story 2 is in here, and then there's like a pop out over here. So it looks like a 1-story home from the street. And then we've got a big flyby going into the street on this side. It's a super cool home. Just another view. Love this staircase, a lot of connection within the homes, like in the Cappy I described in that section where you can see into things. Here you've got, I think that's what bridges are for, oftentimes, just to be able to see things, get a sense of different levels. Even here, actually, you can see into the master bedroom for this area that's above this. Okay, jumping back. Any questions or anything so far? We're gonna jump around a little bit more now. Still good? Yeah, okay. Corbusier, Villa Savoie, 1929. Savoie is a town in France. It's about an hour or so train ride outside of Paris. This was huge in architecture. This was a revolution. So 1929, this is like that post-Urban Gill stuff. Schindler's doing stuff, Hollyhock's happening, just to give some time reference. So this is all the way in France. So I think there was an episode of the Kardashians where Kris Jenner is like, oh, have you heard of Le Corbusier? I mean, he had a big impact. Virgil Abloh was really into him. So Corbusier with this created, just make sure I don't get them wrong, because that would be really embarrassing. But he had this system of 5 points, and he had a lot of influence of architecture on architecture, but it's like the roof garden, the free plan. This was kind of, I believe this is what set off the sort of modern movement in terms of aesthetic. So you can see where a lot of really, unfortunately, bad buildings kind of gotten influence from, with stucco and like Pilotis, this kind of really crappy apartment buildings around LA that we see sometimes. So his 5 points were the Pilotis, which are these structures, so that being open. So in the plan, the car, he was all about like integrating man and machine and futurism, and influenced by those super big boats on cruise ships. Like he just thought they were so interesting. He built buildings that ended up looking like cruise ships at one point. Unité Habitation. The free design of the ground plan. So you have the structure on the exterior walls. So that's where you started getting the open plan. The horizontal windows, and that was to start framing things out more. And then the roof garden, which we chatted about. And it's actually pretty sculptural, kind of in a Gaudi sense. Like there's something going on up there. This is later, 1954. Again, when you find yourself counting in Basel, Switzerland, going to see the Eames chairs get made. This is about a half-hour drive outside of there. I mean, just a stunning chapel. Super cool church. You see the sculptural qualities of the concrete, how that's shaped, the kind of unique composition of things. This is the interior creating that magic moment. And then here's another one where it's kind of similar to the latter house. You have this light poking through and just creating some magic. Now, I want to show that because you all been to the Getty. So Richard Meyer, that was like to my understanding, the last like super project that was done analog. So Pavel, one of my mentors who worked on it, was describing to me how like the rotunda of the Getty Research Center, the precision needed to make sure everything lined up on a grid. When you're at the Getty and you go there and you walk outside of the main entry point, and you step into the main area that kind of takes you all the buildings where all the water is, you can see this grid continue. And this is my own judgment of the project, but you see the sky, right? And then you see stone. That's a combination of nature, poeticism, materials, the sky and stone. And within the stone, you see a grid. One of my favorite moments architecturally, maybe ever, is when you look at the water. That stone with the grid is in the water. You see the reflection of the sky. It imposes a grid on the sky. I mean, the poeticism of that communion of like nature and humanity, I think it's just phenomenal. So the proportions, the grids, Corbusier had something called modular, which had to do with the Fibonacci sequence. Richard Meyer was heavily influenced by the light color palette, modular. Every architect has some sort of influence of modular and proportioning grid in their work, or I should say every good architect, or they're challenging and being reactionary in some way, but there's some sort of engagement with proportion. But these are all on, this is on PCH, like Rod's house again. This is not residential, but good for you to know. Anyone been to Destroyer in Culver City? Okay, so this is on Destroyer.
I was wondering, what is that?
Yeah,
Looks like not finishing development,
which one? The one on the left?
the metallic stuff.
Yeah, so the one on the left, capital A architecture, it's like, you know, the real art of architecture. So Eric Owen Moss was the architect, Samuel Tower the client, communion between the architect and a construction company as client. So you could do really interesting things when that's the case, as opposed to your typical formation of owner, architect, contractor. So they did a lot of stuff creatively. This restaurant here is Vespertine on Jonathan Gould's final list of best restaurants in LA. This was rated this #1, Jordan Kahn's the chef. This is a really cool place to go for a walk. UCLA's art school is over there. It's just imaginative. It's like stuff that one wouldn't think is possible with buildings. So that's Moss. Okay. Oh, no.
Can I just ask, the one on the left, what is it? Like, is it residential?
So it sadly it's closed off. No, it's just you would call it a folly. So, and there's in Paris, this Parc de la Villette, which is full of follies. So what I would equate it to is when we're kids and we climb a playground and we have a good time, just like standing on top of something. I think it's kind of like that. Like, it's really, there's almost a pressure to intellectualize this, and it can be done. It totally can be done. I can talk about the parametricism of the grid on the Vespertine project and what that means. Who gives a shit? Like, it's about fun. That's what I really believe. Playfulness and fun. And yeah, that order and conceptual thoughtfulness all plays a hand in that. So this actually, these circles, you can see these 4 circles here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they undulate between north, south, east, and west. So there's a conceptual play going on as well. The idea is you would climb up this, you know, be able to see different things. He was the architect for the big wrapper, the huge building getting built south of the 10 freeway. That's super crazy. You see with the stairs like sticking out, that's also Moss. He also teaches at SciArc. He was one of the directors there. Okay, this house.
I'm sorry, can we visit any of this? Or it's.
Oh yeah, you can go to these. I mean, Vespertine, you just have to make a reservation to go inside, but I have lunch
The
outside.
first Vespertine, which one was that?
Vespertine's the third one.
Okay.
This is within, there's a bunch of offices there. You can like walk around it, you know, if you meet somebody, maybe they'll take them inside. Same with this one. The concept model for this was actually like an orange stuck into a wall, but then you have like what looks like CMU brick on it. You can't go up this, it's closed due to safety, I guess, or liability, but you can walk around it. And you can walk around a bunch more. Almost the whole street is hidden. So what do you all think of this? I know I'm not giving you a lot to look at.
Residence.
Yeah. Where do you think it is in LA?
What's that? Hollywood?
Sorry, West Adams.
Oh,
Do you like it?
looks like LA,
Looks like LA. Yeah, kind of.
typical
Correct. No, obviously, right?
What's that?
The answer is no, right?
No? This is the inside.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So this guy's really interesting. He's a buddy of mine. He did the original house that I mentioned next to the Studio Works one. He was the original, or one of a couple who worked on that. name's Charles Ward. He doesn't do any marketing whatsoever. Like, not at all, doesn't have a website, nothing. He's not interested in his publications whatsoever. This is the most Instagrammed house in Los Angeles. The guy cannot care less. He is so disinterested. And he's like a master of materials and mood and ambiance. So Philip Dixon's a fashion photographer. He shot like Matt Dillon, Brad Pitt, whoever, you know, he shot all of them. This was kind of curated as a space for him. All the rooms are kind of like this, it's sort of Moroccan feel, exposed rafters. Charles is really, he worked as a carpenter. He does something really interesting in some of his homes, his own home as well. Plywood flooring, it's finished. Frank Gehry did that in some projects as well. We're doing that in our Silver Lake project.
He's an architect or just the person who
Well,
lives there?
So he's technically a designer. The California Architecture Board is very particular about the definition of that until you pass their exam, even if you passed all the other national exams.
He took the old building and created this space.
Yeah, on the inside. And it's cool. I mean, it sort of speaks for itself, you know, it's magic. And I think that's it. So that's
He didn't build it.
He wasn't the contractor.
Mhm.
So it's the Philip Dixon residence. Yeah. I mean, it's real magic, you know, it's like the power of renunciation from the outside. It's one of my favorites. And he's sort of an unsung hero. People don't know what he is because he's just interested in what he's interested in. He's worked for huge nationally known architects. He's an iconoclast. He does things as well.
Right?
Started as a carpenter.
He does design right now, home design.
He does home designs, yeah. Yeah, we're in talks about doing a project together. We were talking about doing something together. So we'll see, I actually have to call him. But yeah, really interesting guy. So that's kind of, do you do that photo again?
Yeah, let me see.
Sure.
Your logo looks like the Harry Potter thing. Is that intentional?
Where's that?
I looked it up on Instagram.
Oh, does it?
I'm on your page.
Oh my God, what's it called?
Yeah,
Deathly
you got
Hallows.
it, you got it.
I love the Deathly Hallows,
Yeah.
why not? No, it doesn't. We're doing like a whole redoing of the branding and all the stuff. Yeah. Nice. I'm about to take my California exam to be able to do like skyscrapers and stuff like that, so we're tying all that stuff in. Yeah, so that's my info. If you have any questions, I can email this to people. Follow up with me. I'll probably just send a Dropbox link. Projects, I was telling before that, you know, we help people with new builds, additions, remodels, ADUs, commercial work, whatever. We also do development. Yeah, but now we can just, I mean, that went longer than I thought, but it seemed like y'all were really into it. Questions, I mean, we can just talk loosely now.
Yeah, I'm new in LA, in the
Cool.
country as well, and I'm just curious where you can find information like statistically, like, typically, which style in LA the most common or something like that, because when the person is saying,
Yeah.
I would like find the house like in chalet style, chalet tourism, this is not, and I'm also
Right.
Googling, and then I tried to find honestly, and I've been waiting for your class, like,
Oh,
you attend Bica, I was driving when I'm.
Oh,
screaming
cool,
about
Bica.
friends
Yeah,
live.
sweet.
Right, so maybe you have this information like a link for us, like for students, because I have no idea.
That sounds pretty intricate. So essentially, yeah, and any tools that would be helpful for you to like close deals, I've mentioned this a lot of times, let me know. So that sounds like one of them. We got a zoning thing from Melika.
Yeah,
So
Steph, when are you gonna start doing the tours so we can go with you and talk?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
you know, because right now the way I do it is
Let
like,
the office know. We're
yeah,
interested, yeah.
the way I do it now is like I essentially meet up with people for coffee at Justa and walk them around Venice. Like we can't go inside these homes, people live there, so maybe we're lucky we meet somebody, whatever. But it's super casual, you know, so, but just
So
to be
just
able
do
to see.
one area one day, like one area.
Yeah, it's so much driving otherwise, I mean, yeah.
let's do.
Okay, cool, yeah, so the
I'm
tour,
totally in.
yeah, great, and I
That'd be
mean,
great.
you know, if that's something.
So
helpful to
this
bring your clients to.
No,
I like
this
this
is one
idea.
weekend. Next weekend.
Okay. Next week, I will.
This year I cannot.
The weekend. Yeah, I have work.
Like a Sunday?
I got other work on the weekend. Yeah, gotta deal with the city and stuff. We'll figure it out. You know, I mean, they can also send something out
No,
there.
give few options. I know how it sounds. Figure it out, Like
Yeah.
never.
No, this is one of our important things that we're doing within the next 3 months to set up and do consistently.
Next 3 months, we are talking next 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
a Jason.
I was thinking next 3 days.
next 3 days.
For 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely
All right,
great,
let's-
Steph. Thank you so much for all of your thank you so much, Steph, for all of your information.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, feel free to email me or text me if you want to keep in touch on this. I'll get back to you on the architecture tour. Yeah, but I'm happy to hear there's so much excitement about it. Honestly, the only reason it's not 3 days or 3 weeks is because I didn't anticipate so much energy around this.
I
So,
love this.
yeah, I'm booked in advance typically, so.
You obviously like architecture a lot and it shows.
Thank you.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah, well, you know, the real thing for me, and we can just talk casually now, and if y'all gotta go, that's good. I make buildings in LA. I'm born and raised in LA. I hate seeing ugly pieces of shit come up and then seeing it sell for a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's have the conversation. It's super difficult to be exposed to this, but it was for me, I should say. Maybe it's not anymore as much. Like, let's have the conversation, because now when you go and you look at a farmhouse, it's like architectural, you know, and you see the windows are like poorly done, you can be like, is it like, you know, or whatever.
So can you, this is good also for you and for us.
Yeah.
Maybe once a month, do a class after hours, like 7, 6 or
Oh,
7.
yeah.
We can bring our clients
Oh, okay.
and listen to you and see you in person because.
Sure.
So we're gonna call it the architectural class information.
Cool.
We're gonna come bring our clients
Sure.
and then they meet you and then they can talk to you.
Great.
That's good, once a month.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That's,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. You think it should be just on
That's
architecture?
a fantastic idea.
Doing that's good, whatever you want to talk about. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
you're trying to get business, so if we have a client that is interested,
Mhm.
you know, oh,
Fix
let me meet them. We
Yeah,
can meet you here, and then you can talk to them directly, and then that
yeah.
way you know we benefit from you teaching the class.
Sure.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I think if we team up, right,
Yes.
like building professionals, let's say, if we team up, clearly LA has a super rich culture of
Right.
beautiful buildings that is being like totally desecrated. So if we team up and are like, oh, let's make these things beautiful, you know, let's sell beautiful things, let's build beautiful things, design beautiful things, that helps us a lot, you know, I mean, so I think that's an amazing idea. I'd love to do
Not
that.
only that, but like I said, we benefit. We get to see you more. We benefit from you.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
it's after hours, so you know, if
Yeah.
you're doing with dealing with the city or something during the
yeah,
day,
that's a great point.
7 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
That's a
whatever.
great point. I'm
That's
trying to,
fantastic.
you know, in terms of other stuff, not residential work, just a caveat. On Rodeo Drive, there are 2 buildings that I love. There's a Frank Lloyd Wright building.
Which one?
It's the smallest, like, it's like a little tiny shopping mall. It's a white stucco building with a giant spire. And it's across the street from my favorite building in Beverly Hills, which is Prada. Prada by OMA, which was way cooler like 15 years
Rodeo
ago.
Drive?
Yeah, they used to have in the floor, they had the glass and these voids and they put the mannequins down there. That building is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have any buildings, any projects in LA, Zaha Hadid?
We don't have any Zaha projects here. I
I
wish.
saw the residential building in Beverly Hills in the Brokers Caravan. It reminded me so much about it.
Did it?
Probably. Yeah, I'll.
There's some
find it.
architects who worked for her that do stuff in LA. You know, and in a shop like that, you have a lot of people who have strong design influence. Zaha was a genius.
I know.
She's
This is
amazing.
only my one regret that I moved from Moscow to Los Angeles and I haven't visited
Mm.
her project in Moscow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Beautiful.
she was phenomenal. I mean, in New York on the High Line, there's a building she did. So next time you're in New York,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, and that one's really cool.
Do you have any like links or information? Because once I tried really hard to find the information, how I can visit this Frank Lloyd.
The Hollyhock.
And not even this, but it's 5 or 6 buildings in Los Angeles.
I've been to 2 of them.
Only in YouTube.
Yeah, there's an excellent documentary on YouTube. It's called That Far Corner, and it talks about all of his buildings in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
His buildings in Los Angeles.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. That Far Corner. Okay. Of course, yeah.
Can you repeat that, that please, that YouTube video?
That Far Corner.
That far corner. Okay, that far corner.
Oh, it
Thank
is?
you.
Yeah, sure.
That far corner.
And then going to Arizona, Frank's Taliesin West, his school is out there. And then also there's Arco Santi, which one of his disciples built, Paulos Sorrenti. I'm getting mixed up with Paulo Sorrentino.
I read a lot and watched the video about Frank Lloyd Wright and all his style about this after Maya style, like
Yeah.
very dark and a lot of stone. This is because tragic of his family. It's
Yeah.
horror story. guys.
Yeah, the whoever was locking them in the room and setting fire to the house. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, something crazy like that. But he would do this thing that was a really cool trick that people still, I mean, I do it sometimes, where you'd have a house, so this is the section, and like, this would be your entryway here. And then this would be set, all right, that's not to scale. This is your door. This would be 7 feet high. And so it's really low, right? And then as soon as you get in the living room, it shoots up to 15. So you get this feeling like, let me get out of the space, right? And then you walk in the living room and you're like, right? And that's really what we're supposed to do as designers. We got to cue up emotions, make people feel things. One of the first things when I meet with potential clients, and something we continue in our conversations, if it's a home for them, not like a development project or commercial project, even in those situations I'll bring it up, but is the question I ask is, tell me about a space that you've been in that makes you feel absolutely amazing. That just makes you go. For me, it's the Getty, and then the Frank Gehry home. You know, I was a kid and I trust that. Like I wasn't smart as a kid to start making judgments. I'd be curious, what are your like buildings you've been in or spaces that have just made you go like, wow, this is amazing. Even if it's a McLean home, that's
It's
cool
a
too.
lot. I mean, it was in LA,
Yeah.
during this broker caravan, it's like once every Tuesday, like.
Really?
wow, Right,
Okay.
I'm you.
Yeah. Okay.
In Moscow, we have completely different architecture, but we actually have some amazing, Melnikov, do you know about this architect?
Oh, with the octagonal.
I've
Yeah.
been inside.
Oh, is it cool?
Yes. right.
That's a really cool space.
Yeah.
That feels awesome.
I have a lot of photos from there, and this building was closed because his daughter was kind of against the public to visit this
Yeah.
residence. But then somehow they negotiated with her and people was able to get in, and I was like, first.
That's awesome.
Oh, and yeah, so in LA, it's quite definitely. What do you think? Is there any space when you hear like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna.
So many, I mean, I come from, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I come from hospitality, restaurant and bar. background.
Okay.
So for me, I consider a lot of like the commercial projects with companies like Tao and stuff like that. but
Yeah.
They're creating drama as you walk
Right,
through.
yeah.
So same thing with the, tight space and then it opens up.
Yeah.
It's like so intentional to create your emotion as you work towards
Yeah.
it. And then same thing, it opens up. the
Right.
space. There's so many kind of like things like that where it's like.
Yeah.
Drama into it.
That's cool. And like, how would, so let me inside your minds a little bit. How does this information help you? Like, how can I shape this more and shape these talks more to help you with your clients? Is it just the knowledge? Like, any idea? You mentioned a
I
style
would
thing.
like some structure, right? Because I like this building, but
Mm,
honestly, I cannot talk with clients like, this is style,
Type of structures, yeah.
type of structures.
names like
Okay.
this, and it's
Interesting.
created by this person because California, it's all about in and out, like style, lifestyle,
Yeah,
Yeah.
buyers looking for certain type of structures.
So like
And-
Our styles.
Yeah.
modern.
Mid-century
this is so
modern,
great. These are
yeah,
the big
it's like-
writers of that style. kind of-
That would be fantastic. I agree. I
Okay.
agree.
Not like the
Styles.
knowledges, this is like
Styles,
impression,
exactly.
emotion.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's super helpful. I'm happy to do that. It's, it's interesting from my perspective. We sort of, like, we have that and you'd think you learn a lot about that, but the education isn't so curated to learning about styles, That kind of happens later in a way, once we start practicing, where it's like, oh, I want to be influenced by this sort of thing, or I'm remodeling the Cliff May home, like let me get books on Cliff and learn about his approach to mid-century modern. Which is kind of like, it's like it's really straightforward when you understand structure. But in terms of style, I can put something together for that. Maybe that'll be the weekly thing, like, oh, here's
Great.
or the monthly thing, like, okay,
Monthly
we're gonna
thing, yeah.
talk about 90 craftsmen and just.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about-
all the stuff we talk about is really interesting.
Well, thanks.
Because, sometimes things that, maybe not,
Yeah, but-
subconscious, but when you
Take
talk
one,
about
one
it,
piece
yeah.
and create
Yeah.
that
create
story.
a thing, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Once I found the information about Cinderella house in,
Walden.
this is the whole story. The two guys were the students and they went through this practice in a college or somewhere in university, and they created kind of simple structure house, so like one story. This is old style houses. In 60s, they sold like thousands of these houses because it cost like 30,000 per house. It was cheap, and people was waiting in the tents next to the office of this
Wow.
builder, right, when the sales start. And it was the big deal, and it called Cinderella because this is so cozy, so simple, and his wife called this house, like, oh,
interesting.
this is house for Cinderella. And now I'm driving in a way, and I say, oh, think.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
okay.
Yeah.
Because the typical structure of the roof, the garage, right next to the main entrance, and open layout. This is first time when they connected living room and the kitchen. Something
Interesting.
like this. And when I inside the house, I can tell my clients, oh, actually, it wasn't like that all the time, because the old style, like architecture in a way, this is small kitchen, small dining room, and small living room. But beginning from 40s, 50s, they create the space, and now it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
A house like with the small rooms, that's inconvenient.
Yeah, well, also, I think that safety plays a concern too, because back then, population, right, is so much lower. You can say to the kids, like, go run in the street,
Yeah.
go say that on Wilton Place now. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. So the kids have to be out, kids were out of the house more. Makes it a lot easier to, all you need is a room to
So
sleep
this
in.
is all about story, and if you
Yeah.
know the structure, you can put what you're seeing in this structure and tell the story.
Yeah,
Because now
interesting.
it was so beautiful, but ask me something after your presentation.
Totally, well, and I think you're right on 100%, and I think
By
that.
the way, can I get the presentation?
Yeah, just email me and I'll send it. You know what I can do? I will. Errol, are you still with
We will
us? Because
email
otherwise
you.
I'll stop the Zoom. All right.
Still here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Sorry, I was just. Yeah, I'm still here, definitely. I'm super enthusiastic about learning more. I feel like I'm completely green as far as this goes. And this is just an absolute breath of fresh air and much needed for myself, definitely. And I'm sure a few other people that have stayed behind with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. And that's really good feedback about the styles thing, because the whole point is to help y'all sell stuff and create an idea of what's the highest caliber building, right? Or what are high caliber buildings.
Yep.
I think to Vita's point, it's there's an overwhelming amount of information, and I can do a class on all these styles. So thinking back to when I was an agent wanting to know about architecture, it's like, well, here's sort of the lay of the land, right? So that's what we did today. Here's like a broad overview.
Yeah.
Now we can zoom in, right? We can look at Irving Gill's work for 30 minutes as opposed to 2. We could look at whoever else's work, Frank Lloyd Wright's work for a whole day. So we can do kind of classes more on that. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even one architecture for one class. because
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
lot.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
for instance, Corbusier, who I had to touch on because he influenced Meyer. Meyer had a huge effect on LA with the Getty. Everyone sees it, right? So it's hard to avoid it. And then the impact on PCH. If you have a house on PCH, you're shaping Los Angeles. Like everyone's seeing it, right? It's a statement. So I'll start curating that.
Plus, can we go maybe all together in a lunch, like in one of the restaurants like Lesper?
Yeah, what we can do, Destroyer has been so busy lately.
Yeah.
When I started going there, I 2 people in line. Now it's like around the
Yeah,
corner.
they're on the corner.
But we should still try and go there.
That's
I'll
good.
call them and see what an off
Yeah,
time
that'll be
is.
good.
Yeah, but we can do, that's a fun one. And it's
Fun
super
one, yeah.
easy because you can walk around next to some things. It's tough to go inside houses,
Right.
but we can do a Neutra VDL tour.
Or you can create the list, like must see,
Yeah,
in your
right.
opinion, houses, even not inside, but
Outside.
right through, right?
yeah, I mean, and then maybe
Uh-huh.
that's something you can
We
share
can
with your
do that
clients
and
too.
we can ask you later. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen what's the point, right? What was it?
Yeah, well, what sort of
That's a
stuff?
good idea.
Okay, cool. What sort of stuff? Because also the other thing is that list may want to be different depending on your client, right? If your client wants modern stuff, or if they want a craftsman home, that's not going to fly, right? But I can shape that.
The good thing, I have to know the difference.
Yeah, when I can also make different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because when they ask me like, give me a second.
Yeah.
What is that?
Same here.
different styles. I can do that. What sort of homes are your clients wanting? What's the trend right now in the requests and the attraction?
Sometimes we have to educate our clients.
Yeah.
Because
Gotcha.
the clients texted me like, I want the house like a chalet style in Laurel Canyon.
Okay,
Okay, let me put these pictures,
yeah,
maybe, but then the budget came up and yeah, it
and
didn't
that
work.
didn't fly, right? Yeah, and that's interesting, because, so I hear that, and what I think of is Laurel Canyon, 1970s, Frank Zappa and the Doors, it's like, okay, well, where were they really living? Right.
See, how interesting is that? Maybe you can tell us the areas in LA and
Yeah.
this area, like Laurel Canyon, this is like the mostly the house, like this style or. This.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be great.
I have no idea.
and my point with that is it's like creating the vibe, the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
you're really
Yeah.
selling when you're selling a home, is you're selling someone's living experience,
Right.
just like that's what I'm designing, and building.
And it's like Venice for people all over the world is LA, but it's not.
Yeah. When also what they think Venice
Yeah. Yeah.
is very different oftentimes than what Venice actually is,
It
where
is,
you're
yes.
paying $1,500 a foot and you've got someone around the corner sleeping in a tent. And it's like a
But that's
brand new
all-
home.
But
with
the
a
one
craftsman
thing
in the
you
movie.
can change that, right? If you think that you're gonna have those moments that you down.
I have no idea.
Anytime soon.
Yeah, they just. know
Or
already.
The new mayor.
Just-
No, but you know the stuff from the city, they give you like the new projects, new building, new
Yeah.
things they're trying to build for the homelessness. Is it just the lip service or they're really doing it?
Truthfully, I don't know fully what the city's doing.
Because that has affected
We
a
have a
lot
lot
of
of
the
people.
house pricing
Yeah,
in Venice and just going down all the way from Venice, like to
Yeah.
LA.
yeah.
I mean, like Sepulveda, there's like a car wash that I know, like I used to go in Sepulveda in Venice,
Yeah,
around there.
Mhm.
Homeless is everywhere
Mhm.
under the bridge. This,
Yeah.
that, that.
yeah,
That
totally.
really, so I don't go to that car wash anymore. It's just,
I mean, I remember when, like, growing up, it was like, there were homeless people, but it definitely wasn't as much. It was kind of more of a
some of them
one-off.
are not from here, the transient. And they
Yeah.
send it, they take them bus, they send, because I talked to them.
Yeah,
They give them bus tickets and say, listen, go to LA, it has a better weather, it's not freezing.
mhm.
They come from Florida, they come from East Coast, they come from Midwest.
yeah, I
And they just
can't,
sit on the street and try to
totally.
live there.
It's complicated, man. I mean, I had a proposal that I sent to Eric, not to Eric Garcetti actually, as a potential
It wasn't
solution.
doing much really.
I don't know, I just,
Bureaucracy of it,
yeah.
Maybe it wasn't passing, I have no idea.
it's, you know, they're building affordable housing. There's a lot of people and there's a lot of housing that needs to get built. And it's
It's not
really
so much
difficult.
that, it has to go hand in hand. Some of these people don't have the mental health to live in a thing. So they have to also have mental health program for them.
Yeah.
To see what's wrong with them. And then that way,
Totally.
because people don't choose to be homeless, they just don't have the
Yeah.
How we
capacity.
ended up in homeless, I missed the point.
It's.
Hey, Errol, I'm gonna end the chat, is that all right?
He was talking about
Okay.
homelessness, yeah.
Errol, I'm gonna end the Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah, feel free to email me. It'd be great to stay in touch.
absolutely. Thank you so much again for your time. It's been super, super valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Starts out.